road trip around Europe, party every night, create something kind of cool and exciting. If people like it, maybe that's my opportunity to do something more.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Kid in a Sweet Shop. And today we're talking everything Gumball 3000. And who better to talk me through this whole journey than the founder, the creator himself, Maximillion Cooper. I was just about to kind of go, God, how many years have we known each other?
Yeah, well, Gumball 22 years old now.
Oh, goodness.
We met several years before Gumball started, and in London, parties, fashion, that kind of scene that we were both very much part of.
Some say that I was there. There is photographic evidence, apparently.
I vaguely remember.
I know. Oh, dear.
And then I started Gumball, and a couple of years in, you took part in it.
I have to say that I would never have raced cars. I would never be doing this YouTube channel without basically you and doing the Gumball, because that was...
Happy to have had an impact.
Huge.
Like that. And I remember those first years where you did it, and you got so into it, and racing after that, and everything. So it's amazing.
So tell me, how did it all begin?
Wow. Well, my memory goes back to those years, but Gumball came from kind of a result of everything I was into, up to that sort of point. So literally from my kind of teenage years to kind of when I started it in my sort of mid-20s, I did a few jobs when I sort of first started modeling that gave me a nice few checks at an early age.
Yes.
And I learned to race cars with that money. So I went to did the Jim Russell Racing Driving School at Donington.
Amazing.
And then raced for sort of, various sort of different categories, and started at the bottom, Formula Ford, and worked my way up to a bit of sort of Porsche Super Cup racing and testing for some bigger and better and faster things. And so I think by the late 90s, my life had this kind of, skateboard world, the kind of the London scene, the music world of that sort of scene, and the fashion world, and then this kind of car world. And I'd got these amazing, great friends in all these different worlds that didn't know each other because they were sort of separate a little bit. And I wanted to put them all together. And there is a bit more of a backstory, and I don't know if you've heard this before, but I tried to buy a Formula One team.
I do know this.
So
I'm sure you guys don't. This is a good story.
Well, there was a team out there called Parabolica Motorsport, which was a great kind of GT racing team. Did the British GT series, and actually
were they GT3?
No,
GT2?
in the McLaren F1s.
Yeah,
and it was the main drivers were Chris Goodwin and Gary Ailes, and Chris Goodwin's obviously still been a huge influence in McLaren and Aston and everything, and an amazing racing driver. Anyway, I became friends with the owner of that team, very wealthy guy, lovely guy, and sort of I got a few other people involved that I'd known over the years that were kind of, figureheads in the motorsport industry. I'd grown up wanting to be James Hunt. James Hunt was the hero. I wanted to kind of bring back that bit of kind of
coolness,
that British heritage, that kind of. So I went and got a load of the people that were involved in James Hunt's team, involved in this idea I had to kind of create this sexy racing team that will be kind of more, the fashion industry style and the music industry attitude, and bring it into the car world. And anyway, I had a couple of very wealthy friends that had sort of been owners of this race team, and a couple of other backers that I'd got to know that were willing to kind of finance my bid to create this racing team. Yeah. And I found myself getting to know Ken Tyrrell, that was the owner of Tyrrell Formula One team, and he was sort of come to the end of his sort of career of owning a team, and he was looking to sort of maybe sell it at that time. And so we had this conversation, and we got to this close. I got to this close to buying Tyrrell.
Tyrrell's amazing.
And annoyingly for me at that time, but not annoying looking back on it because what's happened since has been amazing. But at that time, it was announced that cigarette advertising was going to get banned. And so all these cigarette companies I think they had something like 5 more years where they could sort of throw money into advertising. And so British American Tobacco ended up buying Tyrrell. It became the BAR Honda Formula One team, and they got more money than we had to kind of buy it, and got gazumped. And so I found myself, this is like 1998, I'd got all these friends involved, told them all about creating this rock and roll race team and all of that, you know, and then hadn't got a team. What did I do? So I thought, I'll get everyone together. And I was like, I can't just get them together for a party because that's kind of like not going to go anywhere sort of thing. So I thought, you know what, I'll put on a road trip, get everyone involved that was part of this, and fashion friends, models, you know, racing drivers, the whole lot. Road trip around Europe, party every night, create something kind of cool and exciting. If people like it, maybe that's my opportunity to do something more. And
So what year was this?
so that first rally was April 1999.
Yeah.
Started in London, finished back in London, a 3,000-mile lap of Europe.
How many cars?
55 cars.
55.
A wacky races. Chris Eubank in his truck. You know, the whole thing. Driving the whole on his own in this Peterbilt sort of cab of a lorry. Amazing cars on it. Things like, you know, McLaren F1 LM to Gordon Murray's son Dylan in the Rocket that Gordon designed. Low drag E-Type. I drove a Lotus Esprit. I mean, it was just a bit of everything. We had Hummers on it, and you know, someone drove an ambulance on it, copying the Cannonball Run kind of thing. And anyway, that year's rally was sort of, like I said, it was only sort of 100-odd people, 55 cars. But the handful of sort of celebrities that were on it got their publicists involved, and we had a few model agencies involved. Elite Premier entered some cars in it. And it sort of kind of got around the social scene in London. And by September that year, we got huge features in everything. GQ, Esquire, FHM, Maxim, they all covered Gumball, you know, everything sort of thing. And then what I'd done was that to finance that first year as much as best I could, I got fashion brands involved that I'd got to know over the years through the fashion industry. So Diesel was our first big sponsor. The owner of Diesel, Renzo Rosso, was part of Gumball that year. You know, I just kind of, and actually that first year was a very fashion kind of year because I'd come from St. Martin's as well. I invited 12 different fashion designers to make race suits for everyone. So we had Vivienne Westwood, Alexander McQueen, all made these race suits for all the drivers on it. And kind of that got us coverage in the fashion press. And it sort of grew from there. So by, you know, after doing that first one, I came out of it owing a lot of money because the rally, everything cost me far more than I'd got at the time and anticipated and budgeted for. So I sort of was thrown straight into organising the next one.
You have to keep going,
to kind of keep the funds coming in, but also the energy, the enthusiasm. Everyone that was hearing about it was saying, "I want to do it. When is it? When's the next one?" You know, sort of thing. So it went like that really, and you know, I kind of treated it because I'd already been involved in the car world and loved cars, and I'd driven on a few sort of owners club rallies and things like that. I wanted to make Gumball different. I didn't want it to be anything like anything that existed in the car world at all. And so by the second rally, and I can't even remember now when I look back on it how things came to me or whatever, but I decided to fly the cars mid-rally in Antonov cargo planes to sort of start in one country or continent and fly the whole entourage of, you know, 100-odd cars or whatever it is. You know, that second year was actually, I think, 79 cars in the second year. I decided somehow to kind of give everyone a route card at the start that told them where they were going, which was the format I'd used the first year. But this route card from Marble Arch, it said, you drive to Stansted Airport. And everyone was like, what are we doing? We thought we were driving to France or something like that. And when I look back on it, I kind of realized that actually people paid to enter this without me telling them where they were going.
Exactly.
They didn't care. They just wanted to be part of it.
What's it like, the kind of the trying to organise hundreds of cars, well, I mean, 150, I think it goes up to, hundreds of people, hundreds of crew, getting people on these planes. I mean, what is the logistical side of doing something like this?
I think it's just crazy. I think I look back on it and some of the years that we've done, I question how and why did we even attempt it. But amazingly, we did, and it worked. And I mean, there were years, I think after using those planes that first year, I suddenly thought, you know what, we can start and finish anywhere. I could start in Europe and we finish in America. We can, you know, go to Asia mid-rally, whatever it is. I kind of thought, you know, the world becomes sort of an amazing opportunity to do that. Again, even when I had the idea to do the first one, I had to buy and build, or have made, sorry, the racking system to do a double-decker to put the cars inside these planes. you know. And even
And
that,
how
I
many do you
don't even
get
know.
on? How many cars do you actually get on?
I fit 55 cars on one plane is the most that I've done.
So how many Antonovs have you had to do?
3 in one rally
Three.
is the most. In 2006 rally was probably one of the biggest logistics. 2006,
all in convoy, like
pretty much, yeah.
Oh my.
And then a passenger plane for all the drivers as well. So 2006 rally started in London. We closed central London, Pall Mall, St James, Piccadilly. Crowds now are sort of 100,000 plus.
Was this one I was at? I mean, you couldn't move.
Yeah, a sea
in
of
London.
people completely.
Yeah.
And that year's rally, we started in London. We drove 1,000 miles through Europe.
Yeah.
I think we had one night in those early years as well. And you'll remember this even from
brutal long.
We used to do long drives,
long,
like overnight drives.
Kill me.
24-hour drives.
22 hours, I think, my first.
Yeah, on one stage,
leg.
sort of thing,
Yeah.
Which we've kind of eased it now.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
God!
I think we
thank
broke
goodness.
too many people. I
You
think,
did.
But that rally. So we did London to Budapest in one drive. Stayed overnight in Budapest. Drove to Belgrade, Serbia. Put all the cars on these planes, 3 planes, passenger plane. Flew everyone to Phuket, Thailand. Drove from Thailand through the rainforest up through Thailand to Bangkok.
Magical though.
Huge party in Bangkok. Next day, cars on planes, whatever. Flew everything. Landed in Utah in Salt Lake City in Utah, and drove to Vegas. Did a huge party in Vegas. Snoop Dogg played. Next day, Death Valley, Californian desert to finish on Rodeo Drive, party in the Playboy Mansion again.
I mean, where does this? Where
that was
does
all
this
you
come
think
from?
start to finish. That is actually just 7 days, start to finish.
Is that you looking at a world map and going, do you know what? Like, I don't know, in January or whatever, going with a glass of whiskey, going, I want to go from there to there to there to there to there.
Kind of.
And then.
Kind of. I think.
Oh God, what have I done?
I think it started out me wanting to explore the world, and then you sort of the bigger you grow, sort of thing, you obviously start to have a bit more of a commercial head, and so you want to go to countries that maybe sponsors want you to go to as well, or also you want to go to countries where you've got a fan base, so you're gonna turn up in that city and there's gonna be a crowd of people. Yeah. But then each time as well, I want to go to places that we've never been to before. So it's combining what we know and a little bit of a step into the unknown, and trying to create something new every year. I kind of always treated Gumball a bit like a fashion brand does, that you've got to reinvent every year. You've got to kind of recreate something different. And so the third year we went to Russia, through Eastern Europe, and then back through Scandinavia. And a bunch of mates of mine that were friends from skateboarding had started a show in the US called Jackass.
Yes. I think I've heard of it.
And Jackass was becoming really big in the States. And they called me up and said, we want to come on Gumball. So they came on Gumball, and we made an hour-long special for MTV, Jackass Gumball special. And it was the highest watched show on MTV in America.
Stratospheric.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just.
So that was the big tipping point. That was the kind of, suddenly after that, we signed a deal with PlayStation for video game, Hasbro Top Trumps cards, Hot Wheels toy cars.
I think I did the rally after that, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, it just got it out there, didn't it? It was, you then did the next so many years.
Yes.
That after that Jackass went to Russia, at the end of that show we announced, and next year we're taking it to America. And that's where you came.
That's where I did it.
Yeah.
Popped my cherry.
Yeah.
My Gumball cherry.
Yeah. By that second year, we got sort of tons of all the famous bands on
this
it.
This was when I was hearing about it. The buzz was really happening.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally kind of like every rock star band, whatever it was, fashion industry, music industry, that London scene was hearing about it, and people were coming to me saying, I want to do it, how do I do it, and you've got to imagine that these were days before social media, before...
Thank God.
Before everything. I mean, looking back on it, we've obviously done things like a Gumball book recently, and digital cameras didn't come in until digital photos was about 2004. So everything before the first rally is literally the photos we had from it were like negatives and slides and snapshots, and it was like back in the dark ages of media,
It's extraordinary just thinking that.
And so, going back to that, we sort of didn't have the first I'd say probably the first 4 years of the rally. It was only really the drivers and parking the cars on display at hotels when we got there, and friends and family waving people off at the start, and that was it. There were no sort of fans.
I mean, it is,
you know,
going 20 years on later. I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of people.
Crazy numbers now. Crazy numbers.
What was the biggest fan base, do you think, or the biggest amount of people to watch people leave or arrive?
Probably a few of the stops in sort of Eastern Europe, even that one I mentioned back then of Serbia. When we put it in the sort of TV shows that year, I mean, people kind of referred to it in that country as like the day the cars came sort of thing, you know. I remember driving into the city, and probably about, I don't know, half an hour before reaching the city, on the highway, on the motorway, the actual normal 3-lane wide motorway, there were crowds of people.
Wow.
Half an hour before we reached the city. And then once you got closer and closer, you got to the city and you couldn't see the sidewalks, the pavements, the roads, anything. You were driving, especially if you're in a low
through
car.
People, yeah.
You know, all you can see is like, you know, waist and legs and whatever. And you literally just were sort of wading through a sea of people. And I remember that day sort of talking to my crew that were at the lunch stop saying, you know, you're not going to get here. And they reckon that, you know, that was like that was 500,000 plus people, obviously, that came out that day. But then that was kind of almost the wild kind of like no crowd barrier security kind of one. So it was just crazy. And then years later, 2017, we did Dublin to Bucharest, and we had Regent Street as a stop mid-route. London was a stop overnight, mid-route, like third day sort of thing. And officially, we had over 1 million people attend that. So that was kind of like closing Oxford Circus, Piccadilly Circus, Regent Street, putting on a main stage at one end, a skate ramp with Tony Hawk doing a demo at another end, and cars on display and whatever. And it was ridiculous, but it was managed. You know, there was sort of crowd barriers and security. And we had 3,000 staff work that event. So it's grown into being a sort of a festival in each city almost.
Yeah, you know? I mean, did you ever imagine back in 1999 you would be driving into London with 1 million people?
But that was one of the real kind of goosebump moments for me.
That like pinch,
driving into that sort of Regent Street kind of area and looking around, seeing. We actually did that year. We did. If you can picture Regent Street, they got flags hanging down when there's events on or whatever at Christmas and stuff. And we did. I think we did like 1,000 flags sort of hanging down Regent Street with the logo on, and I remember just driving into there and seeing the crowds and the flags and whatever, and thinking, "Wow, how did we do this? This was like, you know,
I mean, it's like more people than a royal wedding."
Well, apparently that year I think we were like the second biggest event next to New Year's Eve celebration.
Unbelievable.
So it was kind of a good stat to kind of have, you know.
That's not bad. Not bad. And what would you say was the kind of the worst moment, because it's just seemed, I know we don't want to be too negative, but like the worst to organize, or the worst country you went to, or the worst.
These two gumballers that became good friends of mine that were sort of racing each other on the German autobahn.
Yes.
And they sort of thought, you know what, we can drive as fast as we can here, right? They were like this, you know. Yeah. Nothing dangerous, just driving fast, autobahn, you know, sort of thing. Anyway, some blacked out Mercedes, probably AMG something, kind of came and overtook them, right? So
not to do with the rally.
Not to do with Gumball. So of course, you know, then these three cars play a bit of cat and mouse for the next sort of 20 minutes. Turns out this Mercedes was an undercover police car, filming it all. Oh, no. And every time they undertook, it's illegal. You can go as fast as you want in the fast lane,
got it,
but you can't undertake. So at the end of this, they'd racked up an €18 fine. 18,000.
I was about to say 18.
18,000 euro fine. And the other one, I think, was 12,000 fine. Oh my God. And as a result of that, it made all the headlines in Germany. It gave Gumball this bad boy attitude, you know.
Yeah, racers,
you know, kind of crazy kind of thing, which, you know, in a way was sort of not a bad thing. Yeah. In a way, it was nice to have a bit of attitude sort of thing, and it created a lot of awareness, and we weren't really doing anything too crazy. It was just this German media blowing it up like this. And anyway, after that, the next time we went to go to Germany, we got banned from going to Germany. The German authorities said, sorry, you can't come here.
Were you already en route at this point?
No, I was organising in months in advance and whatever. And in the end, I even went to court with Germany about taking Gumball
with
there.
Germany, you went to court.
I did, and I lost.
Against Germany.
I lost.
Wow,
So
I mean.
I ended up on that rally that was actually 2010 rally. We had to go from London to New York, that route was, and the first stage was London to Amsterdam. Day 2 was Amsterdam to Copenhagen. You can only get there if you drive across Germany. And we got banned from doing that. So I actually, that year's one, I had to hire 13 or 14 transporters, double-decker car transporters, and mid-rally, transport everything across and put all the drivers in coaches.
Oh my goodness.
I got sheiks and oligarchs and whatever in the back of a
all
coach,
in a coach
for 12 hours across Germany. But it was one of those ones, again, even that experience of being like disastrous from a logistic, it brought people together.
Yeah.
And people that did that one, they bonded.
Is there one that kind of really stands out of the best moment?
I think there's, I mean, it's really hard. Again, like doing collating all the photos for that sort of book kind of refreshed all those memories again, you know. So I think I've probably got a big kind of goosebump moment was driving into Regent Street and there being, you know,
that million people.
Crazy amount of people was just insane. And seeing the Gumball flags everywhere and, you know, thinking that we've closed all these streets in central London and, you know, somewhere I've kind of grown up going to all the time and suddenly like we've made this kind of owned this space. And so that was a real kind of proper goosebump moment for me. But also I think 2014's rally for me was a really fun one. It was Miami to Ibiza.
Yes.
And I got married 4 days after the rally at the end of it.
You must
so that
have been
was
exhausted.
kind of like, that one was a whirlwind week, which was kind of crazy and probably stands out.
Yeah. And I suppose this leads really on to one place that you would never think that you would ever get an open invitation. And that was when you went to North Korea. I mean, how on earth do you get to the most private country on the planet?
You know, that's kind of a long story how that one came about. Because I didn't wake up one morning.
Say it.
No. I didn't wake up one morning and think, let's go to North Korea.
No, I mean,
I mean, it was a kind of, the short version of it is that a couple of years before that, I got invited to Beijing in China to a kind of I don't know, Gumball was getting a bit of success in Europe and the UK, and I won some sort of entrepreneur award and got invited to Beijing with a bunch of other entrepreneurs and heads of industry. Cool. And it was hosted by the Chinese government. And on my table that evening, I was sat next to the North Korean ambassador to London. So we just sort of connected. And, you know, several months later, I invite him and his family to see the start in London, probably one that you were driving in.
Yeah.
And he loved it, thought it was incredible, and reported back to, as he would call him, his dear leader, Kim Jong-il, about this Gumball experience he'd sort of seen. And the next thing I know, I got an invite from Kim Jong-il to go to North Korea.
It's absolutely mental.
So, you know, so I went to North Korea and met the government there and everyone, and sort of it went from there basically. That was how that door was open to take it to that bit of the world. And then, so 2008 rally, we started in San Francisco. Yeah. We drove San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, to Las Vegas, and then flew the entire entourage, everything, to Pyongyang, North Korea. And then a couple of days later, drove through China and ended up crossing the finish line in Beijing at the Olympics. I mean, so that year was the Olympic Games. So
oh God, you finished at the Olympics?
Finished at the Beijing Olympics.
I mean, for most of us that will never, ever get to go, what was it like? Was it
just surreal, just really totally surreal. Just, you know, again, I went there many times in the build up to that, and every time it was hard to kind of have much of a conversation because the awareness of the rest of the world was so, you know, little that I could be meeting the minister of culture or sport or whatever minister it was, and you'd almost have to sort of reference, you know, the Rolling Stones or Michael Jackson or something to get any conversation going. And half the time they didn't even know who they were. Yeah. So it was kind of bizarre.
But people were allowed out to I mean, not those, they're not allowed out, but did you get crowds and?
No, we kept it as, it was a kind of a more
Quiet,
private kind of, sort of thing. And what we did do is we did an event there in what's called the Mayday Stadium, where the 300 of us, approximately, people on the rally that year, were sat in this world's largest stadium watching a show put on for us of kind of acrobats and whatever. There were 150,000 people in the show performing for us, for 300 of us. So,
are you joking?
No,
me?
it's ridiculous.
That's another moment where you just go, I
know. And we'd all, we'd just flown from Las Vegas. Can you imagine that?
Slightly hungover.
We'd been out all night in Vegas, then flown whatever it was, how many hours to North Korea, and got there, and we're all kind of like, we're all zombies, and then we're sort of like, heading straight to this kind of show.
It's just absolutely mental. Okay, so I mean, what you've created is just so incredible, and it's a monster. It's a real proper beast.
Yeah.
What does the future look like?
It's pretty good, actually. We're, I think for me, I'm still energized to do it because I'm still learning and exploring the world. And I mean, even next year, at the end of May next year, we're taking the rally to Cuba for the first time. So that's again a country that has never seen sports cars ever.
No, they're really old.
Yeah, they're all cars from the sort of the 1950s still.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of an incredible kind of way to cross the finish line next year. But as a brand, as Gumball, one of the things that we've recently signed, I mean, we now sell merchandise and have license deals and
love the merch,
all kinds of stuff. I mean, we sell 2 million Gumball Hot Wheels toy cars a month. So, so it's crazy stuff now. But we've signed a deal for another Gumball video game. So in 2024, which coincides with our 25th anniversary, we've got another, multi-platform, Xbox, PlayStation, mobile, Gumball racing game. So basically next year, we're also kind of jump headfirst into kind of the esports world. And, going to launch a Gumball esports team and
That's
sort of,
huge.
So we just kind of combine these worlds and things that I really enjoy, and which has always been this kind of, combining things, cars, music, action sports, now the whole kind of, esports world has gone crazy, and I want to be part of that. So,
fantastic.
Definitely in a couple of years' time, there will be a Gumball sort of metaverse, world that you can just be in, Gumball world that you can be in online and be part of, and probably buy and sell cars as NFTs in it, and it's kind of exciting.
Virtual reality,
a virtual
AR.
Gumball, yeah.
Oh my God, that's, I mean, my mind just kind of like can't quite cope with all of that. How exciting. And so, okay, so next year you're doing the rally that ends in Havana?
Yes, we are, which is the end of May. It's Toronto to Indianapolis. We're there for the Indy 500.
Incredible.
Yeah. From there, we go down to Nashville for their big event for Nashville, music, concert, everything, the same thing.
I did one. Did we go on the Mississippi on a proper?
Yeah, we did. Good memory.
What do you call them? Propeller boat?
Whatever
big,
it
was incredible.
Paddle boat or whatever.
Paddle boat.
I'm not sure. Steamboat, I think it was.
I love Nashville.
Yeah. Well, Nashville, I hadn't been to since then until a couple of years ago, and it's amazing.
It's
beautiful.
So cool. It's
and
really beautiful.
We're going to huge event there this next year. And then from Nashville to Atlanta via Talladega Superspeedway, doing a NASCAR day.
Oh.
Which will be good. Then from Atlanta down to Miami. Miami's Miami.
We love Miami.
Big party, big everything there. Miami down to Key West, take all the cars by boat to Cuba, fly all the drivers, private plane to Havana, and then we have 2 days driving around Cuba.
Oh, well, I need to do next year then.
Although it's a 16-minute flight.
Oh.
So it's not quite
I was about to say, I'm going to take all you guys.
And then, 2 days driving around Cuba, across the finish line in Havana with a big kind of festival of cars and music and an amazing lineup of artists performing that are all driving in the rally too. So, drivers like Deadmau5 again, and lots of different rappers and headline superstars that drive in Gumball, basically.
It's incredible.
And then there's something else next year.
You're doing something, another one. You have to do one a year.
We are doing a second rally
really?
Next year for the first time ever. It's the first Gumball in the Middle East.
No.
Yeah. So we're going to start in Dubai We're going to finish in Doha, in Qatar. We're doing all the big Gulf countries. So we're doing, you know, the Emirates, we're doing Oman, we're doing Saudi Arabia, we're doing Bahrain. And within that week, we incorporate the Abu Dhabi F1 race. Be guests at that and watch that race. And then we cross the finish line and it's the Football World Cup finals. So
Stop it.
2 huge events in 1 week, which will be, you know, it's a reason for us to do Gumball Middle East, right?
I'm just picturing the cars that are going to be on that one.
Yeah. So, and as you know, over the years, we've had so many kind of, you know, heads of all those kind of Gulf, Middle East countries take part. There, you know, so many friends from that region now that are huge car collectors, and you know, they've been a big part of Gumball over the years. So it's time they're hosting us, they're entertaining us, which will be great.
And to have 2 massive events to go to, and end up
well,
at
you
the
know,
World Cup.
we're post this last 18 months of COVID. You know, events stopped, everything. You know, so we thought, you know, next year let's be back. Bigger than ever.
Wow. And do you think this will be the only year you'll do 2?
Probably.
Just
probably. You know what? It takes us now, because of the production of putting on what we do now, it takes us about 2+ years to organize each one.
Wow. Okay.
And really, we can only really do this one next year because the Toronto to Havana, we'd actually kind of already been working on before we postponed before
Was
COVID.
that going to be 2020?
It was going to be 2020, and actually, you know, the Middle East one was already kind of penciled in to be the following one, and we'd already started working on it as well. So we've kind of been working on these a long time.
So really 2 years in advance.
We're already working on the one after that, which I won't reveal yet. So, but we have to, especially if we sort of sign, if we sign, you know, sponsorship deals with someone, they want a 3-year activation, they want to know what we're doing for 3 years. So, you know, that's the reason.
I mean, it's very, very exciting. And I feel greatly kind of honored to be part of the Gumball family.
Can I ask you, so, you know, what are your highlights from Gumball? You know, you've been on Gumball now 5 times and been part of it for 2 decades, really.
Oh my God, so difficult. I mean, I don't even know how we can fit this in for 22 years of what you've done when I've done 5, and I could just not bore you, but I mean, many.
First one, 2002.
Yes.
New York to Los Angeles.
Yes, I was with my best friend. We were modeling in New York at the time, and Paul, who was involved in Diesel, so it was all that we kind of came in through the fashion side. Yeah. And he said, "Look, we're doing this. Do you want to? We've got 2 spaces in the back of the car." Yeah. So we jumped in, and it was my first real kind of experience, I suppose, of being in a rally, being around serious supercars. I mean, was that the one with Rory and Mark?
It was.
Okay, so this is one of my memories, is an F40, which
50.
Was it 50?
50.
50, F50. I was very new at cars at that time.
One of the F cars.
It was one of the one of the supers. And they had a box full of dollar notes, and every time they left a city,
any city, anything,
going from 0 to God knows what as quickly as they possibly can in a 50, and they would just chuck handfuls of these
dollar bills in the air, and the crowds would
go get them. But it was just this scene, and I was going, what am I witnessing? I mean, it was completely amazing. And then the route, and I suppose one of the really special things was, you know, seeing America. Yeah. You know, I've been to New York, I've been to LA, I've done all of the kind of the main things on modeling kind of bits or
doing
or
a
holidays.
proper road trip across it. It's it's amazing, isn't it?
Incredible and so beautiful. Yeah. And then the following year,
we did it backwards.
We did it backwards. We did San Fran to Miami, and I couldn't get a car until Las Vegas, and I was jumping in Tony Hawk's Dodge Viper that I think was...
Tony was sponsored by Dodge at the time, so they provided a Viper for him, and I can't remember
why. It was outrageous.
What he did after that.
He had to leave, and so there was... he had to go and do something. So they said, right, we need the car to... You could take the car down, and it was like 750 brake horse. It was an utter beast. So the first leg I did with Carter in a Kenworth truck with about 22 gears.
Oh my God.
And that was, so I did 1/4 of it in a big truck and then the rest of it in the most outrageously kind of scary car.
That was an amazing trip.
That was amazing. Awesome. I suppose such a huge part of it is, the people, but also the cars.
Yeah.
What have been, there was the one time where I saw the Koenigsegg do 242
in Texas.
On
that San Fran to Miami rally.
242 miles.
I think the needle had sort of maxed out apparently, and
miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, that was.
But that was also that that was it was part of the sort of the Gumball. I don't know, the sort of myths and legends of Gumball that sometimes
Yeah. Did it?
I don't even know if it happened, sort of thing.
Happen?
But there were things even on that rally with the Koenigsegg. I don't know if you remember when it left Vegas, it filled up for petrol.
Yeah.
And he left, and about sort of 500 meters down the road, everyone's sort of flashing him whatever, saying fuel's coming out, whatever.
Yeah.
He pulls over, he realizes he pulled over, and this is still before getting out of Vegas. He was pulled over right next to a VW dealership. So he goes straight in there and says, I need to fill a cap. They're like, we don't have any sort of thing. He's like, can I try one of the ones that you've got? So he takes one off the VW Beetle, puts it on the Koenigsegg, and it works.
Fits.
So he has to buy the Beetle to take the fuel cap, and he just leaves the Beetle there and never goes back. This guy was from England, and he never went back there, and that's what he bought. So you got this dealer in Vegas that sort of think of Gumball like that as well. What a story!
What has just happened?
I just sold a car, but he didn't take the car.
For a petrol cap.
He took the petrol cap and carried on. So, there are so many kind of like little unique stories that everyone has a crazy adventure.
Yeah.
Whether it is the fun stuff like that, whether it's some of the cars like that, but even the Koenigsegg back then, it was new. People didn't know it. It was sort of America. I mean, there were even stories on that one getting pulled over and the cops sort of looking in it and saying, who's driving? There's no steering wheel, because it was on the other side. They'd never seen a car,
I know.
So I don't know.
Alex Roy in the Police.
Yeah, well, he kind of got a big name for himself with Gumball the early years. This was an American guy did the rally and dressed as a police officer or a Mountie or something, Canadian Mountie, and wrapped his car as a police car and would literally pull other cars over on the rally.
He pulled me over twice, and once in the middle of the night in Virginia, and we were getting pulled over quite a lot through Virginia. They didn't like us very much. Anyway, lights going, pulled over again, and I just heard this tannoy, get out the car, like this. And so I thought, that's unusual, because normally they come up. So I got out the car, and they were like, spread your legs and your arms at the back of the car. So I'm like this, like this. And then I hear the door open and the door close, and I'm going,
oh my God.
I feel really vulnerable right now. And then Alex comes out and goes, I could have killed him.
Yeah. No, there's some of the kind of priceless moments as well, Gumball's got an element of, it's all about fun. It's about exploring the world, having an adventure with a bunch of like-minded people and having a fun time. And there's a lot of kind of wacky races antics with it.
I mean, just the most unbelievable juggernaut you've created, the best rally in the world by far.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you part of it.
Oh my goodness. But there's one thing I just want to, it's kind of like the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Can we just have a chat about that, please?
Yeah.
Because this is your car.
It's my pretty rare Jaguar XJ220. It's a carbon-bodied sort of race version of the road-going XJ220, which at the time when they were released in 1993 were, the ultimate hypercar of the day, the fastest car in the world, had the record for a very short period until the McLaren F1 came along.
Yeah, the 200 mile an hour.
But I've had this car for quite some years, and it's been looked after here by NVN, and they've recently done a nice ceramic coating on it, and it's beautiful, right?
For me,
over the years, occasionally I've sort of thought, what, I'm gonna sort of sell that car, and it's just one of the ones that I just cannot. Every time I see it, I think,
just when those turbos
I had it for a little while. I had it when I had it sort of fairly new. It was literally my go to the supermarket car.
No way, this is like the fattest car in the world. I know. An HGV is kind of narrower than
I
this
got
car.
really good with its, spatial awareness, and then I hadn't used it for probably 3 or 4 years. And about 2 years ago, we'd coming back in the countryside. My son was with me as well. And I pull in the petrol station and sort of reverse a little bit and reverse right into a petrol pump. God, damn.
I forgot it was
I'm
this
not so
long.
used to. I'm not so confident as I was in it, but
It's very long.
It's very long.
I love 220s. I mean, I really, really love them. I
Yeah.
mean, the wonderful Don Law lent me one for Kid in the Sweet Shop.
Well,
which
Don
will be
looks after
coming
this one
soon.
as well. So
I refused to give it back to him.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I loved it so much. What a wonderful car. And
so nice to have this as our backdrop here.
Yes.
But, I need to get it out again, and maybe when I get it out, we'll have to go for a drive together.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll bring the old-fashioned kind of maps because that's how we used to do it in the old days.
Yeah.
No GPS.
No.
No Waze.
No ways, definitely. Yeah.
No, not in that.
Yeah.
Oh, darling, thank you
right.
so much for just being such a joy to reminisce and to just go back into one's kind of memory box.
It's a pleasure.
And to hear
we've been
about...
friends and family friends for years, so it's nice to catch up.
It is. And just what an amazing thing you've created. Next year, Kid in the Sweet Shop is back at the Gumball.